As the Premier League season draws closer and closer, there's growing concerns about a lot of people's second favourite side, Leicester City, and their business in the transfer market. They're yet to sign anyone, and key player Kasper Schmeichel has made his way out of the club. Jamie Vardy is brilliant, but is not getting any younger, and some of Leicester's most key players like Tielemans, Fofana, and James Maddison are being linked with transfers away from the club. So today we've made it our aim to try and fix that with a realistic rebuild of Leicester City Football Club. We're going to try to replace these players the best we can and improve other areas of Leicester's squad in Football Manager, and then test out our side to see how well they might do in the game. I did mention those 3 big players are being linked with moves away from Leicester, and to make this a fun, engaging rebuild, we've got rid of 2 of those, decided to keep 1 because I don't think Leicester would let all 3 go with the season underway very soon. But the obvious sale is Youri Tielemans, whose contract is expiring soon. He's being linked to Arsenal, so I've moved him there for £30 million. Losing a player like that in midfield makes me think Leicester will try and hold on to Maddison despite Newcastle's increasing bids. However, Wesley Fofana to Chelsea, as much as it isn't a guaranteed deal, it seems like there's a possibility that it may happen for a region of around 80 to 85 million pounds. So I've plugged that in here too. 85 million pounds has took the French centre-back to Chelsea, and that leaves some big gaps in the squad. Leicester, by the looks of it, will need a better goalkeeper. Even if Fofana stayed, I believe centre-back was a problem position because Johnny Evans was injured for a lot of last year. He can't be relied upon for a full season, and much like Vardy, he is not getting any younger. Midfield was fairly stacked, of course, but Tielemans may need replacing, and I think going forward, Leicester might be okay, but we will look to see if there's any transfers that need to be made there. Before we get into any signings though, don't forget to like the video if you do enjoy and subscribe for more content like this, and most importantly, let us know in the comments what realistic rebuild you'd like to see next. But now it's time for the fun part as we make some transfers. With Kasper Schmeichel leaving, goalkeeper was an obvious area to improve, and I looked at a few options. Now I'm trying to keep in Leicester's business model here of signing undervalued players who could potentially have high sell-on value in the future. The first player I looked at was Dominik Livakovic. He's a Croatian goalkeeper who plays for Zagreb, and anyone who plays Football Manager will know this guy is quality, but I chose someone else instead. I have gone for the young 23-year-old Turkish goalkeeper Altay Bayındır of Fenerbahce. Fenerbahce accepted 11 million in Football Manager. I'm gonna assume that would be more in real life, but 6'6", he's physically imposing with a high jumping reach and some great technical ability too. He's got an even higher ceiling as well, so he's got a lot of time to grow and is nowhere near his prime yet. He's already capped for Turkey, and I expect that to keep going. Altay Bayındır is our pick for a goalkeeper. Fofana leaving the club did give us a lot of transfer funds to work with, but of course he's very hard to replace. A young centre-back with a high ceiling like that is very hard to come by. He's also very good at distributing the ball and moving the ball out of defence. He's a great ball-playing defender, and we tried to identify a potential replacement for that with the money that we had. And the player that I identified as a good replacement for Fofana was Evan Ndicka of Frankfurt. Now this guy can play in a back 3 and a back 2. He's very useful in a few positions, but I think in that centre-back role, being very physically imposing, fairly quick, very strong, good in the air, he can also tackle and defend well, and he is a good distributor of the ball, left-footed as well. I think it partners perfectly with a more defensively inclined Caglar Soyuncu, who I don't think is the best in terms of playing the ball forward. And that's why I think Ndicka could be a perfect player to partner him. Being at Frankfurt, he wasn't totally unreachable, and we signed him for £32 million here. Now I think Leicester could develop him like Fofana into a player who could be worth a hell of a lot more. He's an under-21 capped French international with a very high ceiling, and he's someone that will make a move to a big club in the near future. So if Leicester can get their hands on him, he could be a great centre-back option. Our other centre-back options at Leicester include Johnny Evans, who, like I say, is injury prone and fairly old, Yannick Vestergaard, who hasn't really impressed or settled since moving from Southampton, and Caglar Soyuncu, who in Football Manager terms is the best of those centre-backs and I think could be a good partner to Ndicka, but we do need some extra depth. Daniel Amati can play there, but is he a long-term solution? I'm not sure, but I found someone who could add good squad depth and also have good resale value, and that is Maximilian Wober of RB Salzburg. Now, he's not as physically imposing as Ndicka, but he's capped for the Austrian national team. He's still fairly young, and he is a player that could slot right in to Leicester's side, and once again wouldn't come with the world's highest fee, which means Leicester could potentially make a profit on that in the future. He can distribute the ball, he can defend well, and I think in terms of a backup in that left centre-back spot behind Ndicka, he could be a great option. Both him and Ndicka combined are still only about half the transfer fee of Wesley Fofana, so I think it's good business and actually improves the depth that Leicester did have in their side. Before we get into our Youri Tielemans replacements and our midfield signings, I want to let you guys know that my own channel can be found linked in the description, where we have a full 5-season Leicester rebuild as well as plenty of other rebuilds and a long-term series going on with Villarreal. We're trying to hit 10,000 subscribers over there and we're getting pretty close now, only 1,000 or so away. So if you could go to the description, check it out if you want to, or just hit subscribe, but I really think you would enjoy the content. That would be awesome. And you would be absolute legends. And one final thing before we look at our midfield transfers, this video is sponsored by the good people over at Spitch, so let me tell you a little bit about them. Spitch is a fantasy football app available for people in the UK, Ireland, Germany, and also Austria if you are over the age of 18. Now, we've told you about the great benefits of Spitch before, where you can enter loads of different kinds of tournaments, you've got unlimited transfers, you'll be focused more on the points your team gets weekly as opposed to the whole season, but it's got even better. Spitch have now added the season mode. There's going to be a free version of this where you can win up to £2,500 as the jackpot, and also a version where you enter for £5 and you have the chance of winning the £50,000 jackpot too. In this mode, you'll select your side for a certain game week and you'll do that across the course of a whole season, picking, if you want, a completely unique team every single week. At the end of the season, Spitch will take into account only the best 5 weeks that you had, calculate the points that you got, and maybe you'll have a chance of winning the jackpot. I mean, there's one that's free to enter. Why not get involved? If you want to check it out, you can find it in the link in the description. From there, you can register onto the platform and get involved and pick your side. Let me know who you're going for in your fantasy teams. Thank you to Spitch for sponsoring the video. Thanks to anyone who checks it out. And now let's get back to our transfers. As a side note, I got an offer in this simulation to let Hamza Chowdhury go, and I think Leicester would be open to that in real life. It was from Borussia Mönchengladbach for £9.5 million. We took that money and we reinvested that right back into our squad with the signing of Erkan Koçu of Feyenoord. We got him for £25 million here. I actually think he's quite underrated in FM22 and will get a boost in FM23. A very good season from last time out in the Eredivisie, and he is a player that wouldn't cost the world and again has potential resale value for Leicester. They have been linked with Hassim Aouar in the past. I feel like Koçu is a similar profile in terms of midfielder that can certainly do that attacking phase of the game quite well. I think Chowdhury could have gone anyway, so this guy is kind of our Youri Tielemans replacement. He's not as good of a playmaker as Youri Tielemans, but that would be very hard to come by for this kind of price point, and I think Koçu has a high ceiling as well. I feel like he would shine in the Premier League given the opportunity, and it won't be long in my eyes till he does make that move away from Feyenoord, so we have brought him here to Leicester City. It now leaves our team like this, and whilst it's very hard to replace the standout quality that the players we let go did, I do think we've improved the team in terms of depth and also done a decent job of replacing some of them. I'll show you the rough tactic that we are playing in a minute, but it is a 4-3-3. However, I did feel, despite Leicester having quality on the left-hand side, they were missing a star player on the right. Marco Brighton has been a great servant. Ayoze Perez has divided opinion and it kind of comes in and out of form at Leicester, so I decided to go for one more player as a bit of a luxury with some transfer budget left over, and that was Ismaila Sarr of recently relegated Watford. £35 million is the value reported by the media that Watford would be willing to let Sarr leave for, so I used the editor to put that into the game here as a £35 million transfer to Leicester. We did have the funds for it, but because I'm using a transfer update here in Football Manager, it doesn't really affect the transfer value for where the player is, so Watford were relegated, but they still wanted £50-60 million for Sarr, which is just unrealistic. So we did go for that reported £35 million mark, and I think he'd suit Leicester very well. He's very fast, direct, and will bomb up and down that right hand side. He can also play as an inside forward or an inverted winger on that left wing, and I think he's a great option. Loads of caps for Senegal already, and I think he'll be a star for Leicester should they sign him. And in terms of the best 11, the game is suggesting this. You'll see that I've gone for a 4-3-3 gegenpress. It's not exactly what Leicester will use in real life, but I just thought it suited the players that we did have. We've got Bayandé in goal, Pereira, Soyuncu, Evans and Castagna as the defence. I imagine as the season goes on though, we will be seeing Evan and Dicker come in for Johnny Evans in that left centre-back role. Our suggested midfield is Ndidi, Maddison and Pratt, but take that with a pinch of salt. For example, Dewsbury Hall has been great for Leicester in real life, but it hasn't really been reflected in his ratings in Football Manager yet. I'm sure it will in next year, but currently Pratt is apparently the better player. The same also goes for Koçu in midfield, so don't take this team as gospel as what the assistant manager will play as we simulate the season. And then going forward, we've got Ismaila Sarr, Jamie Vardy and Harvey Barnes. I do like the look of this Leicester team now. I think it's a lot more balanced than it previously was. There's probably a few roles I'd like to shift. For example, if we change Ndidi here to a ball-winning midfielder or a defensive midfielder, but we'll see what we do there. But this is a team that we've built, and now we're going to simulate one season in the Premier League to see how they do. Will we land in mid-table, fall into relegation battle, or push for a European spot? Who knows? Let's find out now. And it's been a very successful season for Leicester. We have finished in 6th spot on 65 points, getting a Europa League place. We are above of the likes of Newcastle and Arsenal, not by too much mind you, but overall it has been a good season for our side. The teams that finished above us, you would kind of expect to finish above us, and we went all the way to the runners-up position of the Carabao Cup, where we lost in the final to Manchester City. Not a bad team to lose to at all, but overall it was a much better season than I think many would predict Leicester to have next year, and I think our transfers have gone a long way towards that. Some of our best players at the club this year were Bayandir and Ndicka and Kochu, some of the players that we bought in. 5 goals for Kochu across the course of the season. Jamie Vardy still getting most of our goals. Ismaila Sarr was the only one that was kind of a bit iffy. He only got 3 goals across the course of the whole season, and actually 0 in the Premier League, but with 6 assists. I mean, he is playing in a winger role as opposed to an inside forward or an inverted winger, so you would expect more assists and goals, but maybe you'd be hoping for higher average match ratings than that. So maybe that transfer didn't quite work out, but I think overall the team has done very well. I also think the transfers matched Leicester quite well. We tried to reincorporate some of the quality that we did lose, while also enhancing our squad's depth and maybe even making us a profit on some of these guys in the future. I mean, by the time Evan Ndicka's 25, maybe he'll move away for £85 million from the club. Who knows? But I think it was great business overall. We call this a realistic rebuild, as we are signing players I think would suit Leicester's model and also transferability. But what I'm not saying is that Fofana and Youri Tielemans are guaranteed to leave. I actually think they both will, but I'm not saying it is guaranteed. But anyway, that is our rebuild of Leicester. Hopefully you all have a great day. Like the video if you did enjoy, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Thank you everyone, and goodbye.